As he has said, we appreciate you coming out for the announcement of the signees for the 2011 season. I want to start by just thanking the staff for really doing an outstanding job of just putting in the necessary effort. Each year in the month of May, we go out and we visit all 535 high schools in the state of Florida. We've done that for the last 3 years, and we are really beginning to see the dividends. And we only lost 12 guys from our championship team last year, but mainly the ones that we felt like we need to replace. As you know, Philip Sylvester was our kind of go-to guy offensively going down the stretch, and trying to fill his shoes certainly is going to be a tough challenge. And then our two lockdown corners, Keir Hall and Curtis Holcomb, trying to replace those guys. And we always feel like when you report to camp in August, you allowed at this level to bring in 90 guys. We feel like 1/3 or 30 of those guys on that team should be in that front 7 on offense and defense. And we went out, and I think the staff did a great job of doing that. Of course, the TV exposure from the Florida Classic, the Atlanta Classic, really helps in our recruiting efforts, as well as our conference TV package with ESPN. All of that is great exposure, and it really, again, pays dividends for your recruiting efforts. We signed 8 offensive linemen, 5 DBs, 3 quarterbacks, 3 wide receivers, 2 defensive linemen, 2 tight ends, and 2 running backs. All of them are not revealed on your sheet there, but the verbal commitment at the end should verify that those are the guys that were signed. Some parents are at work and they're going to do it this evening, but the final will be given to you. The key again was to add leverage and length to our personnel. We felt like the last 2 years we were very fortunate to get by with some mix and matching with that offensive line. That's why we went out and signed. Our real concentration was with the O-line. We got some 6'8", most of them are 6'5". Then we did go with one that was 6'1", but again, he plays that center position. If you're going to be a little bit shorter, you can't afford that at that center position because it's either going to be reaching or cutting off. So again, that was our primary concern. And then next, we went to the defense in terms of secondary. With the loss of Keir Hall and Curtis Holcomb, we felt like we needed to do some recruiting to try to find out some lockdown corners. And we felt like we were successful in doing that. The third area of concern was at quarterback. We needed more leadership there, athleticism, and of course, we started that process with some mid-year transfers that we feel real good about. So that, and the overall recruiting simply says this: you win because you have a strong team. Not a strong unit, not a strong segment, but a strong team. And again, we felt like we didn't want to stack any one position, but rather to look at what we need across the board. Every morning we start our staff meeting by talking about personnel. And that's what we're in. We're in a people business. And of course, we have to go out and get the what we need in terms of boards. And then we have to put a plan together to make sure that when they come to us at whatever level, 4 or 5 years later, they are productive citizens. And I'd like to add there, of course, last year we had 25 guys to lose eligibility because of their, it had exhausted. Out of that 25, 23 have gotten their degrees. So again, it's all about recruiting. Recruiting is the lifeblood of any program, certainly if you're being successful. Now, our recruiting starts at home. If you look at overall with the 25 guys that we will eventually have signed, 20 are from the state of Florida. And out of that, right here, 20, of course, like I said, from the state of Florida, but only 5 guys are from outside the state of Florida. And if you look at the Big Bend area, you're talking about a total of probably 12 guys. So we always want to start at home, but go to where we have to go to fulfill our needs. But that's also important to us. Now, with that in mind, I'll open it up for question and answers to answer any specific questions that you might have.
Coach, have you found that with the success in the past couple of years, you're in the running for a lot more players than perhaps you were when you first came to FAMU?
Yes, that's a real good question, and certainly, winning 25 games in the first 3 years says that we are no longer in a rebuilding mode, but that we are established. And I think an example of that could very well link back to a young man who wanted to, or is transferring from Michigan, and he put us in his plat there in terms of being a possible place that he would want to come. Well, that says volumes about the fact that you have established a real strong program.
You've always done a great job of bringing in what you need from the high school level, but also finding those little pieces that can fit right in immediately to transfer in. You've got a few of them coming in. Can you talk just specifically about them?
Well, the idea is, every so often you do need to have some maturity right away. And usually with the freshmen, they're going to probably redshirt their first year because making the transition from high school to college is not an easy deal. But sometimes you can go to the 1A situation and probably get a guy that's ready to play right away. We felt that was a need at our quarterback position. Certainly, Austin Trainer, he's undefeated, so it's no question he's the quarterback. But, again, you really have to, at that position, have depth, have leadership, and of course, Tyler Bass is going to really give us that factor as he come in and rotate in. Losing Philip Sylvester, again, here's a guy that was a workhorse for you, so we went to Rutgers and, was able to look at a young man by the name of Casey Turner. And that's not to say that heir apparent is not here. Usually when you need that mature guy, it's normally in that interior. So Ellie Hyperlight, defensive end, because we did lose a defensive end last year. So we went to the junior college to secure him. So again, that's about 3 or 4 of those guys that we brought in at mid-year that we feel because they're here now, they're going through the off-season program, that they should be able to contribute when the fall comes in.
Any more questions at this point?
Coach, one more while I have you. A lot of Tallahassee influence in your recruiting class, able to keep these kids at home that at one point, maybe 5 years ago, were leaving town. Now you're keeping them here.
And that's very important to us because the bottom line is when you do have local talent, you're not just talking about mom and dad coming to the game, but you're talking about neighborhoods because they grew up here. It's good for them because, coaches like to take credit that when a guy is well motivated, playing hard, it's because of the coaching, usually because the aunt is in the stadium. And that is really, really important. Also, we know that filling seats, filling stadiums is a part of the objective because if you have that going now, you got some other things that can happen very positive. And it's going to be great for the young men to be away from home on campus, but every so often go and get a home-cooked meal. So it's a win-win. And those young men have already established names for themselves in the neighborhood, in this community. And I think that's good because when it comes to maybe summer jobs or just really helping to build and brand themselves because they are household names, I think that's going to have an advantage for them.
You've got one player on here. Is the FAMU reach now going across the ocean to Hawaii?
Well, we've always said that, and there's been documentaries done, the love of football excited. Not only does he play the guard spot, the tackle spot, but he also can play center. And fortunately, we didn't have to do a home visit to get him. The whole staff probably would want to go.
Well, you mentioned the whole staff. Can you just talk about the work that all of them did to bring in a class like this?
Whew, that's where it all starts. Done an outstanding job of making sure that we divide the state up and put the appropriate guys in those areas. And then the follow-up, it's just such a massive amount of large volume of paperwork that goes into, because there is no exact science, people fall in love with you for different reasons. But like I said, under the leadership of Tim Edwards, I just can't say enough about how hard this staff has worked to bring in the caliber players that we're bringing in.
Coach, can you talk a little bit about what was different this year in terms of your approach in search of the talent that you wanted to get? And do you get a sense that this might be one of the most talented classes you have?
Well, the answer to the last question first, certainly this is the most talented. And as I've said, when you look at the length, you look at the leverage, you look at the speed, because there are several 3- or 4-star guys in this group. And it all starts, though, it's really a body of work. It's the May recruiting, it's the winning on national TV at the Florida Classic, it's playing in the Georgia Dome in Atlanta. It's inviting, and Coach Edwards does a great job of this. Every home game, we're going to have at least 50 or 60 local players to come and just unofficially, see us play. And when you're winning those games, it makes your job or your selling just a little easier. And what we are selling is very real. Number one, great tradition. It's obvious that this, going back to the Jake Gaither days, that this is a place with great tradition. But the other thing we sell, and is really legitimate, the brand. Florida A&M is well known. Nobody has to ask, where is Florida A&M? It's well known internationally, as the Hawaiian might say, okay, that we are known across the waters. And we take that and, sell it with the idea, too, that it's about the total man. It's certainly going to be physical with our off-season program under Coach B. Certainly we're going to, go to class and, get that mental growth. But I think a lot of the parents were very excited about the spiritual emphasis that we put on the total man once he comes to this program. And I think that really bears itself out in Darius Powell. Understand down in Gainesville today, he had 6 caps that matched 6 scholarships. And he picked up, the Rattler. And I know his dad was impressed with the total man concept that we have here at FAMU. So again, it's all of those things. It's a body of work, and the key is I use the word work. And we just can't say enough about the work being put in by the staff.
Coach, how much do you believe that the success of the program the last 3 years, especially getting a share of the MEAC championship this season, how much has that leveled the playing field for you guys when it comes to recruiting?
Well, to me, it's part of that body of work. When you're winning, certainly it makes things a lot easier because you're not only saying it, but you're also doing it. And you're doing it in front of real large crowds. I guess it's 63,000 at the Florida Classic, but it's also on national TV. Atlanta Classic the same way. And then Dr. Thomas, our commissioner, for him to go out and get an ESPN package says that the exposure now is there. And wherever you have exposure, people will know about what you're doing. And then the website, as much as it's going to be improved, I think when people go on and they can look at us and view us and see the kind of things that's going on. And, this is the first staff to win 25 games in the first 3 years in the history of this program. So all of that really goes into helping young men to decide that this is probably someplace they'd like to be.
The question I have relates to the fact that you got some scholarships back is it this year, last year, as a result of athletics being on probation. How much has that really helped you in terms of being able to spread out a little bit more and fulfill the needs that you have?
Now that's a very good question, and I'm glad that came up because Miles Graham, who was our old NC2A president, passed just this past year, but in the mid-90s, he created this initiative that talked about presidents take back your campuses. It's called institutional control. Well, our president, Dr. Ammons, was invited the first part of the year, the second week of January, to go out to San Antonio and speak to the ADs. All of the ADs in America had a convention. And the reason he was called out there is because we were recognized by an award for the most improved APR, which means we're graduating young men. They are not just winning on the field, but they're winning in the classroom. Well, as a result of that, when we first came in, we had 60 scholarships because of the APR being low. Well, those 3 have been restored because we have done, Dr. Ammons has put into place a real strong academic support system for all student athletes on this campus. And certainly having those 3 is going to help because now you can maximize the support you need from the personnel.
I don't know if you talked about this, excuse me for that sneeze. I don't know if you talked about this before, but can you talk about the needs that were filled with the personnel that you get and specifically with?
Well, the first one was offensive line, because I think you used the term, and I like it. We were mixing and matching the last couple of years because of injuries. We had, of course, if you look at after the Delaware State game, we lost a young man to a broken leg. We had some issues with Hartley with his elbow. And then, of course, after the Miami game, we lost Jerry Moreland for about 4 games. And we went to work this year with the idea that we were going to, you're allowed to bring in 90 guys to your early camp in August. 1/3 of those guys will be linemen, which means we're talking about 30. And that's for the offense and the defensive line. We feel like if we have at least 30, we will never get caught in the situation we've been in the last couple of years. And with that in mind, the competitive spirit in practice should be greater. We should not see anything on game day that we don't see during the week in practice. So that was the first area that we felt like we needed to address. And then, of course, secondly, losing the 2 lockdown corners, Kier Hall and Holcomb, certainly we had to do some things there. So that was our second area of targeting. And then quarterback. We just can't have enough leadership at that position. One guy can go out there and throw a pass and bend a finger on the back of an offensive lineman. And then if you don't have a suitable replacement, now the performance level drops. Well, we addressed the area that, in our minds, anywhere from 2 to 3 guys can play, and it shouldn't be a drop-off, at least the first 2. So those were the 3 areas of immediate need